You know that sinking feeling you get when you check your bank account after payday and somehow it's already almost gone? You're not imagining it. The American dream isn't just fading, it's being priced out of existence. And if you've been working harder than ever but still feel like you're drowning, you're about to understand exactly why. Before we dive in, if you're tired of feeling confused about money while everyone tells you the economy is doing great, hit that like button and subscribe because we're breaking down the truth they don't want you to see. Right now, across every corner of this country, there's a silent crisis unfolding. It's happening in suburban kitchens where parents stare at grocery receipts in disbelief. It's happening in cramped apartments where young professionals realize their degree didn't buy them security, it bought them dead. It's happening in parking lots where workers sit in their cars during lunch breaks, calculating which bill can wait another week. This isn't about dramatic news headlines or political talking points. This is about the 28-year-old teacher who makes $45,000 a year and can't afford a studio apartment in the city where she works. It's about the family of four spending $1,200 a month on groceries for food that used to cost them $700. It's about the middle-aged worker who's been at the same company for 15 years and just discovered that new hires are making almost as much as he does, while his rent has doubled since 2020. The numbers tell a story that millions of Americans are living every single day. Your paycheck hasn't changed much, but everything else has exploded in price. And the gap between what you earn and what you need to survive has become a chasm that hard work alone can't bridge anymore. The foundation has cracked. How we got here. Here's what older generations don't always understand. The economic reality they experienced simply doesn't exist anymore. When someone tells you to just work harder like I did, they're operating from a playbook that's been rewritten without their knowledge. In 1980, the median home price was roughly 2.5 to 3 times the median household income. College tuition at a public university might cost you $3,000 a year. Health insurance was something your employer provided, period. And if you wanted to raise a family, one income could often support a household comfortably. Fast forward to 2026, and the landscape is unrecognizable. The average American worker, adjusted for inflation, earns roughly the same as someone did in 1980. Wages have essentially flatlined for 46 years. Meanwhile, the cost of housing has increased by over 150%. Education costs have exploded by more than 180%. Healthcare expenses have risen by over 100%. But this didn't happen by accident. Several massive economic shifts converged to create the perfect storm we're living through now. First, decades of low interest rates and easy credit inflated the prices of homes and investments. This was fantastic for people who already owned assets, but for everyone else, it turned basic necessities like housing into investment vehicles that price out regular buyers. Second, corporate consolidation has reached historic levels. In industry after industry, from groceries to airlines to healthcare, a handful of massive companies now control most of the market. When competition disappears, so does the pressure to keep prices low. Third, the job market evolved in ways that favored employers, not workers. The rise of contract work, gig economy jobs, and part-time positions without benefits meant companies could reduce labor costs while productivity soared. Workers are generating more value than ever, but seeing less of it in their paychecks. What you're experiencing isn't a personal failing. It's the result of structural changes that have fundamentally altered the relationship between work and reward in America.
The housing trap, locked out of stability. Let's talk about the single biggest wealth killer facing Americans today: housing. This isn't just about buying a home anymore. It's about affording a place to exist. The national median home price in 2026 hovers around $430,000 to $445,000. For most Americans, earning between $50,000 and $75,000 annually, that translates to a price-to-income ratio of nearly 6 to 1 or 7 to 1. Historically, a healthy ratio was 3 to 1. Home ownership has shifted from being a natural step in adult life to a near impossible achievement. Mortgage rates, which dropped to historic lows around 3% during the pandemic, have climbed to 6.5% to 7.5% in 2026. For a $400,000 home with 20% down, that difference means paying an extra $800 to $1,000 per month. Suddenly, a $2,000 monthly payment becomes $2,800 or $3,000, and that's before property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. But renting isn't the solution it once was either. Nationwide, the average one-bedroom apartment costs about $1,550 a month, while two bedrooms average $1,850. In major metropolitan areas, those numbers easily double. Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, Boston, these cities see average rents between $2,500 and $4,000 for basic apartments. What created this crisis? After the 2008 housing crash, construction of new homes slowed dramatically and never fully recovered. For over a decade, America underbuilt by millions of units. Simultaneously, population growth continued, creating a supply shortage that persists today. Then came the investors. Institutional buyers, hedge funds, private equity firms, and real estate investment trusts purchased hundreds of thousands of single-family homes. These weren't people buying homes to live in them, they were converting the American dream into monthly rental income. Add in climate-related insurance costs, especially in Florida, Texas, and California, and home ownership becomes even more expensive. Some Florida homeowners have seen their insurance premiums triple in just 3 years. The psychological impact cannot be overstated. When an entire generation is locked out of home ownership until their mid to late 30s or early 40s, it creates a cascade of financial consequences. Retirement savings get delayed. Families put off having children. The wealth gap grows wider every year.
The bill shock, when utilities become unaffordable. Securing housing is just the beginning. Once you have a roof over your head, a new wave of costs hits. And these are the bills that often push budgets from tight to impossible. The national average for electricity is often cited around $140 to $170 per month, but that figure masks enormous variation. In summer 2025, Texas experienced one of its hottest stretches on record. Families saw electric bills surge to $500, $700, even $900 for a single month. In 105-degree heat, air conditioning isn't a luxury, it's survival. Water and sewer costs have quietly skyrocketed in cities across America. Aging infrastructure needs replacement, and those costs get passed directly to consumers. Internet service, now essentially mandatory for work and school, runs $60 to $120 monthly. Phone service adds another $40 to $100 per line. Then there's the transportation trap. The average new car payment in 2026 exceeds $750 per month, with many buyers paying $900 to $1,200. Car insurance has spiked nationwide, with average annual premiums jumping from around $1,500 in 2020 to $2,300 or more in 2026. That's nearly $200 a month just for insurance. Gas prices fluctuate, but the average household still spends $200 to $350 monthly on fuel. Here's the devastating part. For most Americans, these aren't optional expenses. You can't cancel your electricity. You can't decide to skip car ownership when your job is 25 miles away and no public transportation exists. You can't opt out of internet when your kids need it for school. These bills create a second layer of rent that most people don't account for when budgeting. You think you can afford $1,400 in rent on a $4,000 monthly income, but after utilities, transportation, and insurance, that affordable rent becomes a financial vice.
The grocery store reckoning, food inflation's hidden toll. If there's one place where every American confronts the cost of living crisis, it's in the grocery store. Because unlike housing or transportation, you can't simply opt out of eating.
Official statistics will tell you that food prices have stabilized after the pandemic-era spikes. Year-over-year grocery inflation in 2026 hovers around 2% to 3%. But here's what those statistics hide. Food prices didn't come back down. They stabilized at the higher level. You're still paying 25% to 35% more for groceries than you did in 2019. A typical single adult now spends $325 to $450 per month on groceries. A family of four can easily spend $900 to $1,300 monthly just on food at home, and that's without eating out. These aren't luxury budgets. This is buying chicken instead of steak, store brands instead of name brands. But the grocery crisis goes deeper than just prices. Food deserts, areas where residents lack access to affordable, nutritious food, have expanded across America. Many neighborhoods now rely on dollar stores and convenience marts for food, where fresh produce is scarce and prices are actually higher per unit. This creates a perverse economic trap. The healthiest foods, fresh vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains, are typically the most expensive and hardest to find in low-income areas. Meanwhile, heavily processed foods, high in calories but low in nutrition, remain cheap and readily available. Food inflation has also driven a surge in credit card use for groceries. When your paycheck doesn't quite cover 2 weeks of meals, the credit card fills the gap. But every swipe adds interest, and soon you're not just paying for food, you're paying 22% annual interest on food you ate months ago.
The debt spiral, financing survival. This brings us to perhaps the most troubling trend, the normalization of debt for basic survival. We're not talking about mortgages or car loans. We're talking about using credit cards to buy groceries, taking out personal loans to pay utility bills, going into debt just to exist. Total American credit card debt exceeded $1.3 trillion in 2026, the highest level ever recorded. The average household carrying a balance owes somewhere between $7,500 and $10,000. And with average interest rates above 22%, that debt grows faster than most people can pay it down. Surveys consistently show that roughly half of credit card holders are using their cards not for vacations or luxuries, but for essentials. Groceries when the paycheck runs short, emergency car repairs that can't wait, medical bills that arrive before savings can cover them. Medical debt deserves special attention. Even with insurance, the average American faces deductibles of $1,500 to $3,000 for individuals and $3,000 to $6,000 for families. One emergency room visit can easily cost $2,000 to $5,000 out of pocket. When health issues arise, most families don't have enough in savings to cover these costs outright. This creates a vicious cycle. You use credit to cover this month's emergency. Next month, you're paying interest on last month's emergency while this month's bills arrive. Your available credit shrinks, your minimum payments grow. Eventually, you're using credit to make minimum payments on other credit cards. The broader economic message this sends is disturbing. The American economy now requires most people to go into debt just to maintain a basic standard of living. This isn't about financing lavish lifestyles. It's about using borrowed money to pay for food, shelter, healthcare, and transportation, the most fundamental human needs.
The psychological weight and the path forward. There is an emotional dimension to the cost of living crisis that doesn't show up in economic data, but is just as real as any dollar figure. It's the weight that settles on people when they realize that no matter how hard they work, they can't seem to get ahead. Financial stress doesn't exist in a vacuum. Money worries are the leading cause of stress for Americans, ranking above work, health, and relationships. When you're constantly worried about money, your body exists in a state of chronic stress. Sleep suffers. Anxiety disorders become more common.
depression rates climb. Perhaps most insidious is the erosion of hope. The American promise has always been that hard work leads to progress, that each generation does better than the last. But when young people look at the economic landscape today, many don't see that promise anymore. They see stagnant wages, unaffordable housing, mountains of student debt, and a future that looks more precarious than their parents' reality. So where does this leave us? If you've made it this far, you understand something crucial. What you're experiencing isn't a personal failure. You're navigating an economic system where the cost of basic survival has outpaced wage growth for decades, where essential goods have been consolidated and financialized, and where the rules of economic mobility have been rewritten. Understanding this doesn't make the bills disappear, but it does provide clarity. And clarity helps you stop blaming yourself for systemic problems and start making more informed decisions about how to navigate the reality you're facing.
Your story matters. Here's my final question for you. Which part of this crisis hits closest to home? Is it housing, where you're paying more than ever for less? Is it the grocery store, where your cart empties your wallet faster each month? Is it the debt you're carrying just to cover the basics? Or is it that exhausting feeling that you're running faster just to stay in place? Drop a comment and share your experience, because every story matters. And the more we talk about these realities, the harder they become to ignore. And if this breakdown gave you clarity on why everything feels so expensive, hit that subscribe button and share this video. Because in an economy designed to make us think our struggles are personal failures, understanding the truth is the first act of resistance. Nobody should have to navigate this alone.